Okay, what we have here is a 2010 Hyundai Santa Fe 2.4 liter. About a week ago, it started acting up starting. Turn the key, click, click, click. Turn the key again, click, click, click. Turn the key, click, click, and then it fire right off, run just fine. And it wouldn't do it for several days again. And then it would start the process all over again. Sometimes it would click 2 or 3 times and start right up. Sometimes it'd click a half a dozen times. You'd have to switch key off and go through it 2 or 3 times to get it to fire off. So, did some checking, and I knew going in that it had to be one of just a few things. Number 1, low battery. Number 2, bad starter. Number 3, an ignition problem. I came out in the garage, popped the hood, tested the bolts. It was about 14 bolts. Put the key in the ignition and got click, 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 click. Came back out, rechecked the battery. Still 14 bolts. I checked the connections. They were excellent. Snug, clean. That wasn't the issue. I've not done anything to them. They're still, I like the grease on them. Good connections. I then had the battery load tested. See if maybe, it was an amp problem. It load tested just fine. So, 2 good connections. Load test good. Must be the solenoid on the starter. No problem. I have a new starter put on. Fires up just fine. Backs out of the shop. Go to fire it up to bring it home. Click, 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 fire. That's nice. Bring it home. Do some more thinking, head scratching. Before I consider that it's an ignition problem, do a little bit more tinkering. So I came in, took a look, and I found primary ground off the battery running to right there on the driver's side fender well. I removed the 2 bolts, and the threads were all rusty. So moisture's been getting up in there. I pulled the fitting off, electrical contact, and it was nice, pretty blue paint underneath it. I took my Dremel. You can use whatever you want, but I've got a Dremel. I took a Dremel. I took the paint off down to the bare metal. Cleaned up the electrical contact real good. Then put a wire wheel on the Dremel. I cleaned the threads down to bare metal so they were good and clean. I mounted them back in, snugged them up, and then gooped it up really good with grease. I like to grease. Came over to the passenger side. It has 1 ground running from the engine to there. I did the same thing. Took it off, cleaned it up, got rid of the blue paint, metal on metal, bolted it back up tight after I cleaned the threads, gooped it up. I then started right off. I cycled it half a dozen times. It started just fine every time. I let it set about 8 hours, cycled it again 10 times. Fired every single time. Didn't miss a beat. Let it set overnight. This morning, I fired it off about a half a dozen times, starting every time just fine. I think that's all it was. I think that the moisture gotten up into the threads on the ground. Probably for sure this one over here on the driver's side, and it was having a ground issue. So if you run into this is a 2010 Hyundai Santa Fe, and it may cross over into the Kias and the Sonatas, the Hyundai Sonata and whatever Kia, whatever they're using this setup in the Kias. It may cross over into those. Before you go spend a few $100s on a new starter, you eliminate the battery issue, you eliminate the battery connection issues, go to those. Clean them up. Really good, metal on metal. Get them mounted back in and then smear them up good with grease. I'm going to pick up a couple more. You can get them at the checkout there at about any auto parts store. I'm going to pick up a few more packages and really goop it up and keep it as clean as I can. And hopefully that will end this little adventure. So if this helps, great. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. If you enjoyed it, hey, that's even better too.